Hello and welcome to this Google Hangout where we're going to talk about some of the players that are out on loan. So first off, we've got Nani, who we're going to talk about, who's now out on loan in Portugal. I'm going to start off, Angel's talking about Nani and what you think is going to happen to Nani. Apparently, he scored a cracking goal the other day. I haven't seen, but I'm not sure. I think he scored quite a few goals there. Do you see him coming back to Manchester United?
Yeah, I'd like to see Nani back at Manchester United. Um, I think Nani, he's played very well at Sporting. He's scored a worldie of a goal with his left foot on the weekend. Yeah, I think we should bring back Nani. He's been playing very well. He attacks. I mean, our team hasn't been attacking enough. We haven't been. He tries to beat his man, and not a lot of players in our team have been trying to beat the man. You just get the ball, pass it sideways, backwards, and I'd definitely bring back Nani. Add some more width to our team.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure he's going to come back to Manchester United really because he never really was very consistent at Manchester United. But I think he probably would do a better job than some of the players. But as you said, he looks to be a man and obviously can score a cracking goal now and again. But often his performances have been a bit hit and miss. I don't know if you want to weigh in on any of that, Matt. His performances haven't been great. Sometimes you'll get a great performance from him, but other times you're going to get a bit of a mixed performance.
Yeah, I was pleased to see him go, really. I didn't want to keep him. In fact, if anything, I was annoyed that it was a loan. It makes you wonder why it was a loan, because the only reason I can assume is that initially Van Gaal perhaps thought that he'd have a role in a squad when we'd be in Europe and we'd need a bigger team. But I hope that's not the case now. I hope he's not wanting to bring him back. I think Nani was a player who just never quite made it for me, and I think he had his chances under two managers, and why David Moyes gave him a 5-year contract, I don't know. Moyes had said something about he thought he was a really good winger and everything, but I think that goes back to how Moyes was still looking at it from a perspective of like a Everton manager, and seeing someone like Nani, he probably did think he was a really good player, but in a Man United sense, he wasn't consistent enough. You think of the great wingers that we've had over the years, and he was average a lot of the time. He'd make a lot of mistakes. He wouldn't really do anything, and then all of a sudden he'd score a goal like he's done for Sporting Lisbon the other night. And it annoys me a bit when Man United fans do see him do something like that, because it doesn't make him a good player, because you've got to remember he's doing that in Portugal as well. And that's like similar to how the Scottish League, there's just like one team there that is going to dominate. So in Portugal, there's a couple of teams that are going to dominate, and so players like him are going to shine a bit more in a lower league. But he's not going to do that consistently in the Premier League, and I don't think he'd fix a lot of our issues that we've got at the moment either.
Yeah, we'll probably end up signing someone else in the future. Obviously, we've got a hell of a lot of players out on loan. Cleverley's obviously out on loan as well, and Hernandez. Joey, I don't know if you see either of them coming back to Manchester United and making a stamp. I mean, Hernandez was the better of the two, and did at one point score us a few decent, important goals, but he seemed to really go off, especially last season, and now he's not getting any sort of looking at Real Madrid. And Tom Cleverley seemed to be the real scapegoat last season for our bad performances, but it wasn't. Admittedly, he wasn't a great player for us last season, but he wasn't the only one that was performing badly. There were a ton of other players performing badly, but some Manchester United fans were really happy to see him go. Do you think either of these players have got any sort of even squad players at Manchester United?
Nope, because you look at it this year, we got rid of Welbeck, we got rid of Hernandez, and we brought in Falcao. promoted Wilson. I think Wilson has a brighter future than Welbeck and Hernandez. And it really seems like they want to get these superstar strikers in. You hear, obviously we brought in Falcao, we have Van Persie. These are world class. Everybody in the world who watches football knows their names, and even some that don't. And then we hear Cavani, Lewandowski. So I don't think Hernandez has a chance. And granted, he's at Real Madrid with Benzema in front of him, but he hasn't scored in months, I don't think, and he's only made, I think, 9 appearances. Maybe I was looking at the numbers. So he could start for a Tottenham or a mid-table club. A club like ours, maybe he could come off the bench every once in a while, but he has no future at United. He'll be sold to the maybe a move to Italy would be great for him. We've been hearing he's always linked with Inter Milan in the past, and they seem to buy a shit ton of mediocre players lately. And then with Tom Cleverley, it's unfortunate because while he was made the scapegoat last year, I tried to see the bigger picture, and I knew it wasn't all his fault or even any of his fault. He's a shit player, okay, so I don't expect much of him anyway. And it is really sad because I remember a couple years ago people were talking about him and Wilshere being the future England pairing for the next 10 years. What a joke that is. And it is, but it is a shame because under Sir Alex there was moments of brilliance from Tom Cleverley.
Like his first season.
It's a shame that Fergie didn't stay around longer, or that Cleverley wasn't a few years older and got some more of it. He came up in the academy. I'm sad to see players like that go, but looking at him for Villa, he's been absolutely terrible. And I think that unless you have a world-class manager, even if you have, I just know Tom Cleverley is just an enigma because he's got that talent there, but he doesn't ever show it. He's okay at keeping possession, but he just neither of those players are ever suit up for us again. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Nani. I don't want to bring I wouldn't bring Nani back early from his loan. Wouldn't do that. But I will say that I would not mind him coming back in the summer, giving him the preseason, and then seeing how he plays, and then see how he does in August, because you can always sell him. You have till the end of August. There's a few games before the window shuts.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to letting him come back, show him what he's got. Van Gaal will obviously see him in training, but he's scoring the odd goal that looks great, but it's in Portugal, one, and two, I don't know in those games if they're crucial goals. It's one thing to score a cracker like that, but when you're under pressure, and you need a late goal or the game's tied or whatever, it's a little different when the pressure's on. But Nani's a frustrating player as well. And I think that when we loaned out all these players, we got a lot of the frustration out. We would see Cleverley in the team lineup. Hernandez, we would see him come off the bench, and he was like, offside immediately as soon as he came off the bench.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Nani. Nani, so he couldn't beat a man under David Moyes. He got a 5-year deal, which wasn't warranted. So it was nice to see a lot of those players that, aren't good enough, because in the end they aren't good enough. And if we want to be winning Champions Leagues again and Premier Leagues again, maybe under Sir Alex Ferguson, he could get it done with those players in his starting team and his squad, but it just doesn't work. They got to go. Can't come back either.
Yeah, well, Sir Alex Ferguson played Anderson in midfield, and we beat Arsenal 8-2. So
there'll never be another Sir Alex Ferguson
obviously,
ever.
Obviously, stuff like that's a bit crazy, but yeah, well, we've got other players, some players out on loan as well. We've got Jesse Lingard and Janko and players like that, and Will Keane out on loan. I don't know, Kevin, how you see them players going out on loan, because it's a bit different for them, because the likes of Cleverley and Hernandez are obviously players that have played for Manchester United and are not sort of younger players, but these players have got to prove themselves away in order to make it at Manchester United, really, haven't they? Because the likes of Cleverley are obviously going out on loan just to get a shot of them, really.
I'm not hearing him.
No, I can't hear
we can't hear you. Okay, I think we've lost Kevin there.
No, hold on, Kevin.
So,
Lips are moving, but there's nothing coming out.
I can't hear you. I don't know if you want to chip. I don't know if you want to chip in with that, Matt, about Jesse Lingard and Janko.
Well, with Lingard, I rate him. I would have liked to maybe have seen him had a couple more chances. It was a shame he got injured the first game of the season against Swansea. That was a real shame because consistently in the last 3 pre-seasons, he's been one of the players that have stood out. In Sir Alex's last pre-season, he looked good. In Moyes', he looked very good. And in the one with Van Gaal in America, he looked like a good player. And I think he's a versatile player, so he'd fit into this Van Gaal philosophy of having players who can play in different positions. He can play across the midfield, really, in the attacking areas. And I've seen little clips of him playing for Derby, and when you see his name come up on score sheets and supposedly linking up with play well, it's good to have players loaned out to teams in the Championship who are in that top end who are playing well, because even if it's just going to make them feel more confident, that's going to be a healthy thing. It makes me wonder how much of putting someone like Cleverley, whether he'd actually go, but it makes you wonder if putting someone like Cleverley on loan to a team in a similar sense of how you see like Villa have loaned Darren Bent out to Derby and he's scoring goals for fun, and it's like a confidence thing because they get put into a level where they actually are then probably quite a good player and they shine a bit. And I think Cleverley, the biggest knock for him was the confidence, because the amount of stick he was getting from fans, his performances just weren't good, and it was like a snowball effect. It got worse and worse and worse. Janko, I think, is a player for the future, definitely. I'd like to see him get a chance over the pre-season and maybe develop into like a backup right back, depending on who we buy in the summer. But we've got some exciting young players out on loan, and I like to see when the likes of Lingard are scoring goals and just looking good in a team like Derby.
Yeah, definitely. But he has been out on loan a few times now, so I don't know if he's going to come back next season and get a look in, or if problem is we might end up going and spending a lot of money on another player, and then they don't really get the chance. Well, this has sort of happened with Nick Powell. Obviously, Nick Powell's come back to us now after his loan moves away, and he hasn't really had any chance at all. I don't know if you can if we hear you now, Kevin, but do you think that Nick Powell actually has a future, or do you think he can actually go? Do you think we should send him back out on loan again? Because he hasn't really ever had the chance under any manager at Manchester United, has he? He's been there a few years now. He did get quite a few goals for Wigan last year, so I don't know, maybe he has a future. I don't know how you see his future.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah, I think we should. I think we should send him out on loan. I think the major thing this season in terms of youngsters was that we were knocked out of the Capital One Cup so early and in such an embarrassing manner as well. Because if you'd had the Capital One Cup, I think we would have seen more of the youngsters being played. We all know about the Van Gaal stories at Barcelona, giving debuts to Xavis and Iniestas and Pujols, etc. So being able, the youngsters, they missed out on the chance there, and they've got to perform on loan as well. We've seen Nick Powell go out on loan since being signed by Ferguson at various different clubs, and he hasn't really shone or been the star that he's supposed to have been, but he's still really young. I hope he's not yet another English overrated talent. We've seen it God knows how many times the English press getting excited about an English player after one game. But I think, next season, hopefully finishing top 4, so we'll need a bigger squad, and hopefully the youngsters will get a chance. We'll be in the Premier League, the Champions League, the Capital One Cup, the FA Cup. There's 4 trophies and 4 chances for these players to impress the manager. I'd hold on to Nick Powell, and if not, send them on loan to a Premier League club, but don't send them on loan to a Championship or League One club, because for me there's really no point.
Yeah, I've got to agree there because last season they were saying that he was playing for Wigan and he was doing very well, and there was rumours of him going to a Premier League club and cancelling that loan move. Obviously, Pereira's another one, and we've been hearing that he may go to Juventus. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Angel, because there's talk of him having potential, but obviously he's never really got a look in because obviously, as Kevin said there, the Capital One Cup. Um, we lost in the first game of that, so none of these players have ever really got the chance, and he's never really made. I don't think he's made any other first team appearances, even as a substitute this season. So it will be disappointing if he goes. In case he does come good, we've seen that with Paul Pogba. Obviously, he probably won't become as good as him, but it'd be disappointing if he goes for free, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think Andres Pereira, he's a talent. I've seen his performances for Manchester United. He plays. He's a great talent. Haven't seen him live. When I was watching him, he was always trying to make something happen. Looking to make pass the ball. He's playing in the hole in the number 10. He was trying to make things happen, looking for the pass, seeing passes that other players weren't seeing. He's a very intelligent player. He's got a big future ahead of him, I think. I've heard he wants to go to Juventus. Manchester United will apparently have not been giving him the opportunities. I don't know why we're not playing. Maybe I don't know why he's not even on the bench. To be honest, I saw him towards the start of the season. He was on the bench and stuff. Why he's not even on the bench anymore? So I don't know what's going on there. He shines for me in the reserve games. I think he's our best under 21. I think, in my opinion, apart from James Wilson, obviously. Andres Pereira, basically James Wilson, Andres Pereira, Sadie Janko, in my opinion.
Yeah, it will be quite disappointing if he ends up going
Yeah.
without not signing the new contract because he'll go for free. Obviously, we've heard I think today that Tyler Blackett has signed a new contract. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Joey, because I think he's getting now 20,000 a week. Obviously, he hasn't featured lately. I think he got sent off for the under-21s the other day. But I suppose you think it's quite good news that he's now signed a new contract.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because all the papers and everybody's saying that he wouldn't be offered a new deal, and then a few days later, now a week, and he's got the new deal. He's increased his wages. I want to see him. I would like to see him be given some chances. I think obviously, like I was saying earlier with the preseason, he'll definitely get some chances in the preseason. I don't know if he'll get any more chances this year. He can play in the reserves and the under 21s, but we've seen him, and he played very well certain games, and then certain games he looked like a young, raw prospect. But the talent's there. The kid can play on the left side of the defense or at left back, so he's a strong guy, good in the air, and he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. It's exciting times with Van Gaal because we're going to see youth players come through. And touching on Pereira, if he's good enough to play and they're that worried about him leaving, he'll get some games, or he'll definitely come on for some games, I think, later in the year, because they will not want to have a repeat of the Paul Pogba incident. They're talking about us, spending 80 million pounds on a guy that we had. We had this player, and we let him go for free because we played Raphael in midfield. We played 8 defenders that game. So they're gonna want to avoid that at all costs. But if the comment, there was a picture going around saying I have to talk to my entourage, money won't be the issue, but it's not the main thing, but it could, it'll help, blah blah blah. And if that's his attitude, he can go. I want players here that want to play for the badge, want to play for the shirt. You're going to get paid either way. So that, the level of greed is just disgusting in modern football. But yeah, I'm happy. We tied down Blackett and McNair now for a couple more years. Now there's only one guy. I forget his name. What's that guy's name that we want to sign a contract? David De Gea. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it should be up to David De Gea. Well, we've seen some rumours saying that he hasn't talked to Van Gaal actually for a few months. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Matt. It seems a bit of a strange one. I don't think it's true really, but it's weird because we've signed down these two players, Blackett and McNair now. So I'm expecting now he should be signing a new contract soon.
To me, it just says newspapers trying to sell papers. Journalists are trying to make a story up out of nothing. I think if David De Gea hadn't been speaking at all to Van Gaal, do you think someone with the arrogance and ego as Van Gaal would be playing that player regardless of how well they're playing? I think if he was completely blanking him, I think we wouldn't be seeing David De Gea playing in goal at all. So I don't think that's true. There are concerns that everybody has over this contract thing because De Gea is in a strong position. He's either going to get a very good deal and be Man United's number one, or he carries on playing the way he is and he's going to be Real Madrid's number one. Mendes is the bastard that he is like making up stories and trying to get involved in deals with Real Madrid and Man United all the time. If he's not talking about Ronaldo, he's talking about De Gea. If he's not talking about them, he's talking about Di Maria. If he's not talking about them, it's Falcao. So, and then he's Mourinho's agent as well. So the guy's just everywhere. And so the problem is that the press get on that and they're writing stories all the time. To quickly go back to the Pereira thing, all I'd like to say is that Sir Alex said when Pogba went is that the deal was there, he could have signed, but it was because he was thinking that he was wanting a chance in the team straight away, that he didn't want to stay. And in my opinion, that's wrong. A young player should be prepared to work to get into the first team. They shouldn't just think, oh, I'm good, I should be in it. Because to me, there's got to be a level of self-confidence and arrogance in a footballer, but to that level, when they're young and they're trying to break into the first team, that's wrong. They've got to prove themselves, and I think if Pereira is thinking that he's God's gift and he deserves to be in the first team straight away, then I'm sorry, unless you're going to show it. If he was showing it and putting in the hard work and everything, Van Gaal would be putting him on the bench and he would be playing him in games. So to me, if he's not being picked, then there's probably some attitude issues, and I think that was the same with Pogba. The annoying thing about Pogba is that he's then gone on to be this great player, but Ferguson let him go because his attitude was that, oh, I'm great now, play me now, and he wasn't then. He was okay. He was still a kid. So it will be interesting to see what happens, but to me, if you're going to be a young player and your attitude is that I'm great, I should be in the team, then you've got to show it, and if you show it, then you'll get played. But to me, I think he's probably just doing a lot of talking at the moment and not enough actual football side of things, concentrating on that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you've got anything else to add, Kevin, before we finish up about any of the players, anyone you'd like to see come back or go out on loan or anything?
No, not really. I just hope that next season we, as I said before, stay in as many competitions as we can, because it shows, and the injuries as well. Actually, the injuries showed how much strength and depth, how much depth we lack, and how much strength and depth in the players we have that we have to call up upon the under-21s and so on. But I hope we get the balance right in the summer. Because if we get in the Champions League, we're going to need a bigger squad to enable us to play in these competitions. So I hope in the summer we get it right between the balance of buying new players that we need and bringing up players with under-21s to get a good balance of talent in the team. I just don't hope we go out and do your thing and just buy and forget about the youth team. But but Van Gaal's the type of manager to always keep one eye open and look at one eye on the youth setup. So I think the future's bright for the young men of Man United.
Yeah, definitely looking bright. I do like the fact that he does like to give a lot of youth the chance at Manchester United, which does bode well for the likes of Jesse Lingard and Sadie Janko to come back and have a future in, whether it's in the first team or as a substitute from the bench. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I don't know if you've got anything else to add, Àngel, before we finish up.
Just to reiterate what Kevin was saying, I don't think we should go out in the summer and spend like, I don't know, 200, 300 million pound and just forget about our youth players, because we're Manchester United. Youth is, we breed youth players. The class of '92, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham. We're Manchester United. I don't think we should. We're not Manchester City. To go out and buy players. We make our own. So yeah, I think Van Gaal will definitely, he's going to get the right balance between world class, established players and the youth players. Yeah, because he gives opportunities to the youth players, which is evident when during his Ajax and Barcelona days.
Yeah, it's just the only problem here is the youth players in England haven't always been as good. Sometimes we haven't had the players come through in recent years, like in the Beckham and the Paul Scholes days, which obviously sometimes they're not getting the opportunity because of the players coming from abroad. Like we're spending 60 million on Angel Di Maria, or Arsenal are spending 40 million on Messi Ozil, or Alexis Sanchez, or someone like that. So they're not really getting the game time. I mean, because they always used to bring through a lot of youth players, and now they seem to be going down the same route as everyone. I don't know if you want to chip in with anything there before we finish, Matt, but it does seem a bit sad that this is the way it's gone, where teams just really want. Well, I mean, Manchester City and Chelsea never really bring through many youths at all now. But we've always been a club that like to bring through youths, but obviously even all the top clubs now want the instant success, and will go and get a ready-made player, which like we've done with Radamel Falcao and players like that, rather than always bring through someone like James Wilson.
Yeah, well, I think we've got to remember that the class of '92 was a special group. That's the one of the first and probably only time that any club will get that amount of players come through in 1 year group who will all be world class players, and maybe not necessarily all as world class as each other, but at their best they were part of a very good team. People seem to include Phil Neville in that group. Usually he wasn't actually part of the '92 group. I think it was a couple of years later. But Scholes, Neville, Giggs, Butt, Beckham, they were just incredible, and so it's highly unlikely you're going to get something like that again. But we do have the players there that they show glimpses, and the fact is that you look at how many players just throughout the Premier League and the Football League, how many players have come through our youth academy alone. I think although we've not produced world-class players on countless occasions, we've produced all professional footballers who have had some form of career in the game. I wouldn't mind betting that most squads at some point have had a former Man United academy product, especially in the Premier League. Even players like Shawcross and even players like Robbie Savage back in the day, there's always these players that aren't Man United quality, but they're still good. I'd like to see us give players more of a chance. With Blackett signing his contract today, Van Gaal had said that he's got a bright future, and it wouldn't surprise me if in the summer he might let go the likes of Evans or Jones or Smalling, someone like that, and then McNair and Blackett will then become the backups, and then he'll strengthen and get more of an experienced defender to come in like a Hummels. I think he'll want to keep a core squad of having younger players who've come up through the team, because I think that's only right. And it's a healthier thing. I don't like it when clubs go out and just buy players, because it's wrong, really. It's wrong on all levels, because we develop players from other countries as well. It's not just that it's only affecting the England team, it's affecting all nations, because eventually if they're only trying to get ready-made players, then it will be almost impossible for young players to get into the team. So it is sad that not as many clubs do it, but I think the likes of us, Liverpool, even Arsenal in some respects, should feel reasonably happy that we still bring through players as much as we do.
Yeah, definitely. It's just whether they're actually as good these days. But a lot of clubs still try and bring them through. I mean, Southampton have tried to bring them through, and obviously over the years West Ham have brought quite a few through in the past. But obviously it gets hard. It gets harder these days with and with obviously they all want the instant success, and with the money in the football these days, we'll go and buy them. Anyway, I think that's about all. Covered everything. It'd be great if everyone could let us know in the comment section what sort of players you'd like to see come back to the club from the youth team. Set up the ones that are on loan, and whether the other ones, the likes of Nani and Cleverley, have actually got a future at Manchester United, and how you feel about that. And thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll be back again soon to talk some more Manchester United football.